Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I welcome you all in this video. Today we are going to discuss about bioenergetics. So what is bioenergy? Bioenergy is basically the making of energy, relationships and its conversion in for living organisms. Now, what do you mean by bioenergy conversion? Conversion means the light energy from sunlight is converted into a food product as glucose over here. Now this process is called photosynthesis, and that light energy is converted into a chemical energy or an ingredient or a compound formation. So this process is bioenergy, example photosynthesis. An alternate for this is that this compound which we have noticed over here as glucose is finally being utilized by mitochondria in cellular respiration and is released into CO2 and H2O, and this is done by cellular respiration. So both process of photosynthesis and cellular respiration falls under the category of bioenergy. So bioenergy क्या हुई? एक लाइट एनर्जी का केमिकल एनर्जी बनना और केमिकल एनर्जी का गैसेस कंपोनेंट्स बनना ड्यूरिंग फोटोसिंथेसिस फॉलोड बाय सेल रेस्पिरेशन. ये दो प्रोसेसेस फोटोसिंथेसिस और सेलुलर रेस्पिरेशन कहलाते हैं बायोएनर्जी. अच्छा, now let's talk about photosynthesis. It is a process in which light energy is converted into chemical energy in the form of sugars. That's we already know. Now this is a sun, and under the expression of that sun energy. Now sun की जो energy है, it usually falls in the form of packets, and these packets are small particles which we call as photons. Now 6 CO2 plus 6 molecules of water join together to form glucose and oxygen is released. So the plants right now, even during this lecture, the plants you notice outside in a daylight are going on. There is an ongoing process of photosynthesis happening in these plants and leaves, to be precise, in that location. So why do photosynthesis is necessary? I mean, what's the right? Why do we need photosynthesis? Because food is among the basic necessities. All living organisms require food to use and use them for their energy, to metabolize that food. So that energy source is required by all living organisms. Now, based on whether they can produce their own food, that they are converted into autotrophs, and if they are dependent for their food, they can't make their own food, that they are called as heterotrophs. So animals, humans, they can't synthesize their own food. By synthesis means an animal or a person sitting at its own can't generate the food. In fact, we are dependent on plants. Sunlight plus carbon dioxide is being utilized by the plants, and they are self-sufficient in terms of making their own food. Animals use their food as fodder, चारे के तौर पे इस्तेमाल करते हैं, then they produce milk or meat, and then that is being utilized by us. So such kind of groups are called heterotrophs. So consume food made by an autotroph. So what is an autotroph? Plants are autotrophs. Now, what are the basic ingredients of photosynthesis? The basic ingredients of photosynthesis are water and carbon dioxide. Now, where do water come from? Water comes from the root, and if we see the blue line, it shows that the water is traveling through a channel which is called xylem, and it is traveling all the way to the leaves. From the leaves, it is being transpired out, so the new fresh water and mineral stock is going on from the roots towards the leaves. Additionally, that space from where the water ooze out are called stomata. So look at this eye with a blue arrow on the top. Now this same spot is actually providing an entry of carbon dioxide inside it. So the two essential nutrients, water and CO2, are happening on the leaves, are being provided on the leaf. Now I am more interested to know what exact location inside the leaf where this process of photosynthesis happen. Now if we focus leaf, okay, then inside the leaf there are particular kind of cells, they are called mesophiles. And if we look at the image, there is a leaf, and if we ignore the outer layers, the middle layer of cells are called mesophile cells. Now inside these mesophile cells are the organelles. Basic concept of organelles is that they have a lipid bilayer, and they, from an evolutionary prospect, it is believed that these organisms were living independently, but then they have joined into a big cell, and inside the cell they assigned a certain amount of work for their own. Rest of the jobs were done by the cell regular machinery. So they have their own DNA, ribosome and other components, but they are working inside the mesophile cells. So these small tiny organelles are called chloroplast over here. Now inside these chloroplasts, now we need to remember three terms: thylakoids, granum and stroma. So inside these chloroplasts, thylakoids are those discs from where the reaction begins. Okay, now these thylakoids, once arranged in the sort of patties like things, that are called granum. So the difference between thylakoid and granum is, if we notice just one patty, that is called thylakoid. If we see multiple towers of these thylakoids, we call them granum. So the space between these two granums is the stroma. So the stroma could be this region, this region. So in between space between two thylakoids are the granums, is called stroma. Stroma is like this region is the stromal region, this region is the stromal region, this is granum. Okay, and if we talk about one patty, that is thylakoid. So let's make an analogy. एक example से हम इसको याद करने की कोशिश करते हैं. So consider this leaf as a school bag, and inside a school bag of a kid we have multiple books, stationery inside, but we are more interested in chloroplast, lunch box, you know. So in the lunch box we see thylakoids, independent burger, patty, cheese. These independent things are called thylakoids, but once they are arranged in a tower, that we call as granum, and the space between two burgers is called stroma. So the stroma is, this region is the stroma, this whole lunchbox is called chloroplast, these are the thylakoids. If they are arranged in a burger form, that is called granum. This green portion is the stromal mass, stromal region. So we have multiple thylakoids as we notice. And now let's talk a little bit about the photosynthesis. Now there are two phases of photosynthesis. For a brief understanding, we label it as light reactions and dark reactions. So the light reactions are dependent on light source and they require light. Dark reactions also happen in daylight, but they don't require a sunlight to be present. Right now for this phase, what you need to remember: H2O, water, is oxidized into O2, that is the oxygen we are respiring. And there is a generation of two products: ATP, energy capsule, is generated, and NADPH. NADPH. Now how it is generated I am going to elaborate in a subsequent video. And this is the light reaction. In dark reaction, CO2 and CO2 is added, and this CO2 results in the conversion of a sugar, which is glucose, we have seen in the earlier equation. Okay, and what are these 1, 2, 3 numbers? One number, thylakoid. So the process is happening on thylakoid, and something is happening inside the stroma. So that stromal component which is being generated is ATP and NADP. And number 3 is actually the location of a lunch box, that is chloroplast. Okay, so this is what we need to understand about photosynthesis. The details regarding light reaction are coming up next. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.